Have you ever just looked at how politics works and thought to yourself, there has to be a better way? Well, today, we're going to explore a really fascinating idea, a whole new rulebook that basically rethinks the entire system. We're talking from who even gets to run for office to how we make sure they're actually doing their jobs. So, let's dive in.
So, imagine this for a second. What if running for office was less of a popularity contest and more like applying for the most important job in the country? You know, a job with an actual description, with real qualifications you have to meet, and with serious performance reviews once you're in. That's the big idea we're going to unpack.
So the first big piece of this new rulebook is all about the application process. It's about setting a baseline for who can even get their name on the ballot. And look, the goal here isn't to exclude people, it's to make sure that the folks who want to lead our communities and our country are actually qualified for the job.
Okay, so this whole thing starts by laying down some universal ground rules for any elected position. And this isn't some fuzzy wish list. It's about defining the absolute core of what public service should be. We're talking a solid ethical track record, the actual skill to listen and communicate with the people you represent, and a real understanding that, yes, your performance is going to be measured. These are the non-negotiables.
But it's not a one-size-fits-all deal. The framework gets really specific depending on the role. For instance, if you want to be a member of parliament, you'd better know how to draft and review laws. But if you're running for a local council, you need to have a deep grasp of things like municipal services and public consultations. It's a simple but pretty powerful idea. Get the right people with the right expertise into the right jobs.
So on top of the skills, the next piece of this puzzle is huge: total transparency. This is where things get really interesting. Under this kind of system, candidates can't just hide their past or be vague about their credentials anymore. Why? Because it would mandate a complete, open-book profile for every single person running for office. And when we say complete, we mean it. This isn't just a resume. It covers everything from their education and work history to their criminal record, their finances, even where they stand on key policies. The whole point is just to give voters all the facts, the real, verifiable facts, so we can make a smart choice and cut through all the political noise.
And look, this isn't some honor system. There are real teeth here. If a candidate is caught lying on their disclosure form, the consequences are swift and they are serious. We're talking immediate disqualification, removal from office if they've already won, and even legal action. It's all about enforcing honesty right from the very start.
All right, so we've raised the bar for who can even become a candidate, but what about the way we actually vote? Well, the second part of this framework is all about redesigning the election itself to make sure the results truly reflect what the people want, and frankly, to make every single ballot a lot more powerful. Now here's a big one. This rulebook proposes making voting mandatory for all eligible citizens. Of course, there would be clear exceptions for things like being medically unable to vote. The goal is to completely change the game, to boost the legitimacy of our democracy, make our leaders accountable to everybody, not just a vocal few, and really tackle voter apathy head-on.
Okay, I want you to take a good look at this number. Seriously, burn it into your brain, because this number is arguably the single most powerful, most transformative rule in this entire system. It completely changes what it means to win an election.
So what's so special about over 50%? Well, it means a candidate can't win just by getting one more vote than the next person. They have to get the support of a true majority, more than half of the voters. This is designed to put an end to leaders getting into office with, say, 35% of the vote, and it ensures they start day one with a real mandate from the people they represent. So you might be asking, how do you get to 50% if there are a bunch of candidates? The answer proposed here is something called preferential voting. So instead of just picking one favorite, you rank them. This is my first choice, my second, my third, and so on. Now, if your number one pick gets eliminated, your vote isn't wasted. It just transfers over to your number two, and that process keeps going until one candidate finally crosses that 50% finish line. Okay, so we've covered the job application and the election itself. But what happens after someone actually wins and takes office? Well, this final, and I think critical part of the framework is all about building in continuous accountability. The job is never just a sure thing for the whole term.
You know, this line right here, I think it really gets to the heart of the whole philosophy. Being elected isn't some prize that you win. It's a job you have to do. And just like any other job, your performance is going to be actively monitored.
And how is it monitored? With a performance report card, basically. We're talking about tracking clear metrics like their attendance, how much they're actually engaging with their community, whether they're following through on their promises. The point is to make performance something you can measure, not just something you argue about. It creates a real record of accountability.
Now, if an official's report card is consistently bad, there's a clear, formal process for removing them. And this is really important. It's designed to be a fair system, not some political witch hunt. There's a written notice, they get a chance to respond, an independent group reviews the case, and the final decision is made public. It's all based on evidence, not just opinions.
And here's another really smart tweak to the system. You know how when a seat opens up, a replacement often just serves out the rest of the term? Well, under these rules, that changes. Instead, a brand new election is held, and whoever wins gets a brand new full term. The idea is simple. The people should always be represented by someone who has a fresh and complete mandate.
And what about that little gap before the new election happens? Well, any temporary caretaker has their hands tied. They can keep the lights on and make sure things run smoothly, but they are strictly forbidden from making any big long-term decisions. That power is reserved for someone who has actually been elected by the people.
So, to wrap it all up, this whole new rulebook for our politicians really stands on three big pillars. First, there's the application, making sure candidates are qualified and totally transparent. Second, the election, redesigning the vote so a winner has a true majority behind them. And third, the job, building in constant performance reviews because winning the election is just the beginning.
You know, a framework like this puts a lot more pressure on politicians to be competent, to be honest, and to be accountable. But it does leave us with one last, pretty big question. In a system that's designed to give us more information and more power, what new responsibilities does that place on us, the voters?